promo trail for his new book, and he sat down with Stephen Bartlett from Dragon's Den for a wide-ranging interview. And as well as taking him to task for some of his political decisions, Stephen also got under his skin to show a softer side of Boris when talking about his parents' divorce.
It was upsetting when they split up. I was cross and said, you know, so why did you have us then? Because I thought, well, you know, as you know, I think it is upsetting, and kids do take, you know, kids take it upon themselves, right? And so they do think that there must be some fault or mistake in themselves, and that isn't true.
Well, exactly as you said it, Jane. You know, that wasn't the bombastic Boris that we're used to. He was clearly very thrown there, wasn't he?
I mean, I think it's interesting to see him in what you would call the long-form interview format, where, because normally he's just doing very quick political interviews, and he does the sort of the bluster and the hair. And I think that particular podcast, they can record sometimes for 2 to 3 hours, and then they edit. So the power of silence, because somebody being interviewed has to sort of fill the silence. And but it doesn't surprise me, because years ago I saw a superb documentary actually called At Home. I think it was called Painting with the Johnsons. Right. His mother was a very accomplished artist, Charlotte. But it was all really centred around her. She had a lot of mental health issues all the way through their childhood and was in and out of institutions. So they had a very chaotic upbringing. And a lot of people, I think, that go, oh, well, you know, you went to a posh school or whatever, privilege, privilege, privilege. But actually, you know, privilege is also about having stability and boundaries and whatever in childhood. And I think Boris's dad would be the first to say that he you know, did a lot of it by the seat of his pants, really. So, so I think... And I've met Boris many times and had some very long conversations with him. And he's a lot more serious, sort of off-telly than he is. That all of that bluster, a lot of that is to detract from answering personal questions.
So, I mean, Nadia, does that change your opinion of him? Does that give you
I mean, I've
different
never been
view
one
of
to
him?
think that just because somebody goes to a posh school and lives in a big house and that they're privileged actually in their childhood. It's not about that. It's how you know, how you're loved and how you can. So there's been lots of... I've never watched this documentary, but there's always been lots of stuff around that. And his sister has said a lot of stuff about... So I've always... my opinion on Boris, there's a lot of the stuff that I really don't like in his behaviour, I think is because of that. That's what I think. And I mean, also in this podcast, he doesn't apologise. He actually doubles down on the whole Partygate thing and says, well, you know, everybody's working really hard. Are we really supposed to not allow them to have a glass of wine? Well, we weren't allowed to have a glass of wine. You know, so that was still there. But I'm a great believer in looking... I'm fascinated by people. As you know, it's my favourite hobby. I was diagnosing everybody and was looking... And so I'm always really interested in how a person has got to where they are with what's gone on before them. But it doesn't excuse bad behaviour. Because you have to be... You have to... who do you become in spite of what
He's two people to us. He's a human being, you know, and obviously we have to listen to that, and it is interesting to see that side of him and to think about his human experience. But equally, he was our Prime Minister, and he took very important and critical decisions. And, you know, his book that he is now, you know, selling, and that's fair enough, you know, it's 730 pages, and I've not read it, but most people...
Which doesn't actually really touch on
most people
stuff.
who've reviewed it have said that, you know, he doesn't really take any responsibility for anything. He got a £500,000 advance to write it, which is all fine, you know, but as, you know, the electorate...
I'm starting to write my book now.
Especially if you don't have to say anything.
We've got to judge him as a Prime Minister.
Yeah, do you know what? I think when you look at these things, especially when they go viral, these moments of emotion, it really intrigues me how out of all of that interview, an hour, 2 hours, that is the part that everybody is really pegging and looking at. And I think it's because so much people are hurt by the decisions he's made don't get me wrong, I'm not MP, I wouldn't want to be in a power like that, but the decisions he has made has really hurt us as a community, as a country, and I think what it is, people are shocked by that or want to see that because they're hoping that he has some kind of emotion, some kind of empathy.
Yeah.
We want to see something to make you feel like, oh, he is human, surely he understands what he's put us through, and I think that's why those bits get so, like, viral and everyone's so obsessed with, oh, we saw someone cry and got emotional. But like Nadia said, I think it comes to a stage in your life, we've all been through stuff, yeah? We've all been through stuff.
Everybody
and
has.
everybody, you get to a stage in your life of, OK, am I going to let this continue to make me a person that reflects what I've been through, maybe some, you know, disadvantage, and excuse your behaviour, or am I going to use it to make me push forward and maybe connect with people more on a different level so that I can make change in myself?
But it's interesting what you said about people looking for that vulnerable moment, because that's where politicians are actually wrong not to come more often to this, because people are craving relatability with their politicians.
Exactly.
And I think that's probably... I think there's something in that people want to be able to forgive him.
Yeah, they do. That's a good point.
You didn't tell us, what impression did you get of Keir Starmer? I know you met him very briefly,
Do you know what?
but,
It was so brief. It was such a brief thing, and it's really hard because it's hard to judge someone in the moment. There's many things that's happened that I don't agree with. He gave that impression of, like, you know, that head teacher that you don't really like, but then the school gets, like, outstanding Ofsted. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, he seems like he's very clear on what he wants to do. He's not going to be led by an emotion to waver what his decision's going to be. He seems quite focused on what he's going to do. We just have to hope that what he's going to do is going to be for the beneficial for us as a country and for the people that really need it, like our frontline staff, our children in poverty, and these are the people that really need it. That's what we just have to hope.
Preach.
Well...